Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of the Oxford Business Insights podcasts. I'm delighted today to welcome Sarah Jaycock, the co-founder of HS Composites, a business that's we're going to be talking about apprenticeships, innovative carbon fibre, and balancing business with a wider family life. Literally, we're going to talk about going from the kitchen table composites to international projects. Sarah has helped shape a carbon fibre company that is as focused on its people as well as its clients' performance. Sarah, welcome and thank you for agreeing to talk to us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. Well, Sarah, tell us a little bit about your background before you got into HS Composites, because I guess when you were younger, you probably didn't think HS Composites was or composites were going to be part of your life. Is that fair?
That's very fair. I think actually growing up, I didn't know anything about composites. I didn't know anything about carbon fibre. And until I met my partner, I didn't even know that being in Bicester, we lived in Motorsport Valley. My pathway was very different as I was growing up. I actually went down the route of education, went to university and studied English language and literature at Bristol, with absolutely no vision of going into manufacturing or engineering or composites.
Okay, well that was quite clear. Not a traditional background to go into that type of work. So how did it start then? How did you get into HS Composites, and how did the company begin?
So it started at a point in time where both my partner and I, Matt and I, found ourselves in a position where we both needed employment. So as I said, I'd been to university, I'd come out at the end with a lovely shiny certificate, but I couldn't find suitable employment. Everywhere I applied, I was told the same thing, and that was, it's great you've got your education, that you've got your certificates, but unfortunately you have no real work experience. And a lot of the companies and the roles that I was looking for, they all needed that work experience. Whereas Matt had gone down a very different route. He'd gone through straight into employment from school, worked his way up from a cleaner to a laminator to a general manager by the time he was in his early 20s in a composite company. And at this point in time, the company was being taken in a different direction from what he had built it up over the years. And so he also found himself in need of employment. And unfortunately, he was just as unemployable because although he was fantastic at what he did and he had a great reputation, he was of more value to people as a supplier than he was on the books.
Right.
So it was just a case of we were both in this position of needing employment. And then Matt was going out and having interviews, and each time he was coming back to me with the same feedback. And that was that he was more value as a supplier. And I said, well, why don't you just set up on your own then? And he said, well, I wouldn't know where to start. I was like, well, I do. First of all, my dad was a sole trader and he'd set up his own companies in the past. But likewise, I just spent 3 years of my life learning how to undertake meaningful research and apply that research. And I felt quite confident that I could find out the basics of setting up a company and getting the ball rolling. So I said, you go and get the work. I'll do the back end of things and we'll just see what happens.
Very good. And so what were those early days like? Once you set up, you were basically working from home, as I understand it, and that strikes me as not an easy thing to do if you're working in carbon fibre composites. So tell us a little bit.
The early days were absolutely chaotic. So we approached the banks, first of all, because in composites, you need a lot of equipment, a lot of machinery, a lot of investment to start up. And we were in our early 20s, and we didn't have any financial backing. And of course, we went to the banks and they just laughed us away because they'd said they'd match what we have nothing, so they would give us nothing. And it just so happened that, when we started out, our first order came from a Formula One team. We laminated it on our kitchen table. It went into our oven in our kitchen at home. And that day we had a takeaway. But then when Matt had been going out and having his interviews, one of them was actually at a local motorsport college. And we understood at the time that they had a fully operational composites facility, but it was only used for a matter of weeks throughout the year. And that was throughout the academic year. But the rest of the time it sat dormant. So whilst we were working from our kitchen table, or more so Matt was, we approached the college and asked whether or not they would rent that facility to us. And they said yes. So we set up an agreement and gradually moved the company into the college. and that was great. And then at the same time, I worked a couple of other jobs. I'll be completely open. Matt was more full time in the company at that time, whereas I was working a couple of different jobs just to make ends meet.
Excellent. And so you obviously had some, was it you or Matt, or did you both jointly have some sort of vision to drive through that? Because it wasn't easy for going from kitchen table to working out of a local college. We'll talk about how you developed from then, but you holding another job. You clearly had some vision of what you could do, but is that right?
It wasn't necessarily a vision, it was more organic growth. So as I said, the first order that we had came from a Formula One team, and that order escalated, and we had multiple orders, and then other teams heard about it, and we grew quite quickly. So like I said, we moved very quickly from our kitchen table to the college, but likewise we realized there were boundaries with that, in that we were very much tied in with the academic year and the college times, so open from 9 till 3, which isn't viable for a growing business. And we were having to pay a caretaker to let us in early, come and let us back in the evenings, over half terms and things. So as we were growing and we were there, we realized that we needed to take it one step further and get a facility of our own. So after 6 months of being in the college, we took on the unit we're in now, which was an empty barn at the time. And we started manufacturing in the barn. And then we would take the components over to the college to use their autoclave and things like that. So really, it was a case of what we needed rather than having this big almighty vision.
Excellent. Okay. So you mentioned how you started to grow. You got more orders, and that sort of more orders came from some of the initial orders. So you've got a premises, and how talk us through a little bit about the growth story. Were there any key points on that journey where you felt actually, we need to go to the next level, or you look back and felt you'd really established yourself? What were the key moments in that journey?
I think the biggest thing for us at that point in time was not having our own autoclave. To put an autoclave in is very expensive. It's a big piece of equipment. And like, as I said, we didn't really have a lot of financial backing. So we used those first few months to really save. And when we took on the new unit, we continued to save. And then in 2012, we actually bought our own autoclave and had it installed on site in Campbellsfield. And we also paid for the upgrade of the electricity, so we could have 3 phase and have everything operational on site.
That's right, because it's not just expensive equipment; it's pretty expensive to run as well, isn't it, in terms of power?
Yeah, it's got a huge power draw, and because we are on a farm here, it's a fantastic location. It's absolutely stunning, but it didn't have that infrastructure already available. So we put that in as well, and that was a huge turning point for us, because then we were able to manufacture independently. And not at the mercy of anybody else's timetable.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. And so you started obviously working in F1, and I know you can't go into the fine details of those projects, but were you always focused on sort of motorsport, or did you sort of expand outside of that? How did the company go sort of product wise or customer wise?
So we started off in Formula One, and we're very much Formula One centric. That's Matt's passion. I, on the other hand, have less enthusiasm, should we say, for motorsport. I've grown to love it a bit more over the years, but it's not something that I wake up excited about. And we actually had an opportunity come to us. So Matt had met somebody in the industry previously who had an idea to make a full carbon fibre wheelchair, and he'd actually gone off and done that in the time that they hadn't seen each other. But the problem is that he'd gone off and he'd built a wheelchair. But what he really wanted to do was build a wheelchair that was suitable, not just for him, but for the wider market, for the wider wheelchair sort of users across the world. And he came to us and sat down for hours, and I mean days. We sat down and we all sat around what was a sort of kitchen table in our office at the time. And we looked at the wheelchair that he already had and stripped it back and spent hours discussing what's good about it, what's bad about it, what would you like to see differently? As a user, what do you want from this? And he talked about so many different things that he'd experienced, because he'd actually, he was in a wheelchair due to spinal injury. He had been able-bodied earlier in life. So he'd understood that transition, and he was talking to us about it. So the more we discussed it, the more we started to build a vision for full carbon fibre wheelchair that actually eliminated a lot of the the negatives that he'd experienced. So, for example, it was fully modular, so that he could get in and out of a car without a second person helping him. It had lights built into it, so going across a car park at night, he was able to use both hands to wheel, but also see where he was going. And we developed this product with him, and then we took it pretty much, like I say, from a prototype to a marketable product.
Yeah.
And then that opened our eyes in further of where we could take carbon fibre and how we could apply it. We had a lot of skills and knowledge about the materials and how to use them and their properties. And actually, we found ourselves in this unique position where we're able to take it outside of the normal
Right.
scope of where it might be used. And that became a second focus for the business.
Okay. And in terms of, I know where you are now, and that innovation is really important too, although sort of motorsport is still perhaps core to your business. But how wide did you see sort of carbon fibre being applied in a wider marketplace? Clearly, very high performance situations like F1, you see the need. But do you think there's opportunities for it to become more mainstream with things like whether it's a wheelchair? I think you're doing something else in the kayaking world, or is it always going to be quite a specialist, unique thing? What's your view on the long-term application of carbon fibre?
Yeah, I believe it can be applied to most industries and most sectors. It's all down to the cost implications, really. It's not a cheap material and it's not a cheap process. With the manufacture of carbon fibre, the majority of it is done by hand. It's manual labour, and it's very skilled.
Yeah.
So it's something that if it's affordable to the sectors, it's usable, and it can elevate most projects, most sectors.
Yeah.
As long as you want something to be strong and light and
okay. And is that what I know business is going very well for you? You've built up that reputation over the last 15, 16 years, and now people come to you within the industries that you're known in. But is it that innovation that actually is your strength in terms of why somebody sort of picks up the phone or sends an opportunity to you? Is that innovative approach? Or as well as the long-term relationships you've had with many of your clients, what would you say is the main reason they pick HS high-spec composites?
I think it's a number of factors. First of all, we have a lot of experience in the application of carbon fibre, not just in one area, not just in motorsport, but across the board. As you've touched upon, we've done water sports projects, we've done sports equipment for Olympians, we've done all sorts of different motorsports. We've done things for aerospace, we've done things for medical, we've done things. So I think actually we're very diverse in what we're able to do, and actually having that knowledge and applying it across different projects in different areas gives us a much better position to be able to work on bespoke projects. But then also we've got a very innovative way, I suppose, of dealing with our clients. We're not corporate. We're very personable. When people come into our company, they become part of our story, part of our journey. And we're not the type of people to sit down and charge by the hour when we're looking at how something can be done either. We're excited about it. We sit down. If you come to us with a drawing on the back of a piece of paper and say, I really want to make this out of carbon fibre, so long as you want to make it for the right reasons, or you use carbon fibre for the right reasons and not just aesthetics, we're interested. And like I say, we invest in it personally. And we build long-lasting relationships and potentially take a lot of those projects to market. Excellent.
Okay, well, look, we've touched on people that have to be skilled, and it's still quite a manual process. Has some expensive equipment to go with it, but it is quite a skilled labour process. So talk to a little bit about the type of people you've built up and brought into the business, because I know you have a belief, and you've got you have a sort of role representing apprenticeships in Oxfordshire, which I'd like to touch on. But talk to us within your company. How do you bring on people? What sort of people you look for? And because that's a really important part of your team. I mean, you and Matt can be as creative and innovative as possible, but you need other people to do the work as well. And you've built up a good team. So I'm really interested to hear a little bit more how you've done that.
So we've got a fantastic team here, and we are really a mix of skilled and training positions. So ever since we started, as I touched upon, Matt and I personally had experienced issues in finding suitable employment, because Matt had the work experience, I had the accreditations, but actually we were both employable because we didn't have both.
Yeah.
So we kind of wanted to right and wrong as well. So as soon as we started to employ people within the company, we said we wanted to make sure whoever set foot in the door had the opportunity. They didn't have to, but they had the opportunity to gain accreditations as well as working day in, day out. It was a bigger vision as well, sort of strengthening the wider industry and the wider sector. But it was a personal vision as well, because we wanted to make sure that we were providing those opportunities and those skills and making people employable moving forward. So we started off, when we were in the college, actually, we started off providing work experience for students. Okay. And then that led very quickly to apprenticeships. We saw the value in those apprenticeships again very quickly. It was absolutely fantastic to bring young people into the company, have that fresh vision, new ideas, the enthusiasm. And it was great to see how quickly people could develop and become a central part of the team as well. So we started with the apprenticeships. We won an apprenticeship award back in 2016 for our provisions, and then we've developed that ever since. So we now offer levels 2, 3, and we're just doing our first ever level 4 apprenticeship in-house. So it's not just for new people joining the company, it's for existing members of staff as well. So yeah, we tend to upskill on an ongoing basis.
And can I ask you a question? Obviously, apprenticeships, you've clearly got a philosophy of bringing people through. Do you retain all those people? Do they move on within the industry? Because I can imagine it's quite attractive working for F1 is not necessarily just working on a farm on the edge of Bicester.
No. Again, we would love for people to come and do their apprenticeship and stay with us forever. Of course we would. But we're realistic. We know that's not the case. As you said, there's a much more glamorous world out there, especially in the world of Formula One. So we understand that we are a stepping stone for a lot of people into the wider industry. So our theory is putting people onto the apprenticeships, doing an incredible job, making sure that they are exceptional at what they do and they have a fantastic experience, so that if they want to stay with us, amazing. They're already a really valuable part of our team, and we will create jobs where we can for people. We've had people actually do their apprenticeships and move into management positions within the company. But then, like I say, a lot of people then have moved on as well into Formula One or into other areas. And it's a case of maintaining that good relationship, so that when they go into, like I say, the wider industry, people say, "Oh my gosh, where did you learn how to do that?" By spec. Or they, and then they say, "Well, we need to sub some work out. Maybe we'll send it back." Maybe those people will move into buying positions or designing positions and come back to us. But it's a much bigger picture, and we're happy to be that launch pad for a lot of people.
No, that's great. And I think it's something more widely that companies bring on, or smaller companies in particular that bring on apprentices. They kind of, some have that sort of resentment of the fact that they might leave. Well, you're training somebody typically at the earliest stages of their career. And yes, they might move on, but if you do it in the right way, as you say, they will remember their early stages of their career so well, so important to them, and potentially be good clients or customers in the future. And I wish more companies, more generally with apprentices, had that. I don't think it's right to keep a young person, resent a young person because perhaps their very first job wasn't something they were going to keep doing until they were 60 or something.
Exactly that, and I don't think our sector is completely unique when I say that once you've crossed paths with someone, you're going to cross paths with them again. And we always say to people when they come into the company, never fall out with someone in composites or in this industry, because you will bump into them somewhere along the line. They might be a buyer at one team 1 month, and then they might be in a different position at another team in 6 months' time.
Absolutely.
But you will cross paths again. So it's a case of, we see that with the apprentices. As long as they've had a great experience, they've got great skills, we hope to cross paths with them again.
And tell us a little bit, you do have a slightly wider remit with apprentices in Oxfordshire. Tell us a little bit about what you do that on a wider level, not just within high-spec composites.
Okay, so there's two main roles there. So first of all, I am on the founding committee and host for the Oxfordshire Apprenticeship Award. So that's promoting and celebrating apprenticeships across Oxfordshire, but not just in our industry, but all industries and all sectors. And that is really, I love being involved with it, because you get to see people's journeys as well and how they progress. And each year seeing, you know, what an apprenticeship can bring to an individual and to a company, and shine a light on that. And then I'm also chair of trustees for the Engineering Trust, which again is more engineering apprenticeship based, promoting those apprenticeships within schools, and well, in general, and showcasing engineering as a career pathway.
Excellent. Okay, and so that and just if anybody, the Oxfordshire Apprenticeships Awards is just tell us, how often does that happen? Is that an annual event, and how could people find out?
So that's an annual event. If you go on to, now they've changed their names, it's Enterprise Oxfordshire.
That's right.
Enterprise. Was Oxlet. But if you go onto the website, there's a huge amount of information on there about the Oxfordshire Apprenticeship Awards. There's all sorts of videos as well from myself and other people, like talking about how incredible the event is. And like I say, it's really nice because it really does show how diverse apprenticeships are these days. Yeah. I think a lot of people sometimes think back to the stigma of an apprenticeship being a very manual based job in a very in a limited amount of vocations, but actually nowadays you can do an apprenticeship in almost anything. And having been a part of those awards, I'll just touch upon one of the ones that stood out to me the most was in my first year on the committee, and that was I met a young girl who was doing an apprenticeship in law. And first of all, I had no idea you could do an apprenticeship in law. But her story was that she and her best friend had wanted to go into law at the same time. Her friend had gone to university, she'd gone into the apprenticeship, and they were coming out at the same time, with the difference being that she had no debt, she'd put a deposit down on her first flat, and she already had a base of trusted clients, or clients that trusted her. And work experience. And I just thought, this is what we need to be showcasing, because it's not the right option for everybody, but it's probably the right option for a lot of people, and they need to know it's there.
Absolutely. No, well, wish you luck with the Oxfordshire Apprenticeship Awards, and I'll certainly, with my coaching hat on, push that to a lot of my, most of my clients are small, medium-sized businesses, that it's very, very relevant to. So look, coming back to your day-to-day world, obviously we've talked a bit about your business life. I don't always like the word work-life balance, because I'm not sure
juggle.
The juggle, whatever you want to call it. But you, during this time, you've also had a family, still quite a young family. How do you balance that? How does that work out between the two of you, and business and a family life? Tell us a little bit how you manage that.
Well, as I just touched upon, it is a juggle. I'm not going to pretend even for a second that it's not. Because when you're putting your all into your family, you feel guilty about the business, and when you're putting your all into the business, you feel guilty about the family. But it is doable, it's manageable. So to give a bit of backstory, Matt and I had our first son in 2018.
Okay.
It was a very exciting time for us. We put a lot in place so that I could potentially take some time off. And that was the hope. I left it to the very last minute to go off and have the baby, thinking, then I can have a bit more time, maybe the other side. But unfortunately, we had a legal issue at the time, which meant that I went off, I had my son, or our son, came home from hospital, and the very next day had to meet with our legal representatives and was thrown straight back into work. So there was no maternity leave. But because I came straight back, I just thought, I'm needed. I need to continue. So we found a way for it to work. People who were involved in our journey at that point in time will remember our baby being changed, having his nappy changed on our meeting table. He was strapped to me when I was giving tours around the facility. In fact, if you look back on one of the Oxfordshire Apprenticeship Awards, I believe it may have been him or my second son strapped to me while we filmed. For that as well, they just became part of the business, the journey. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then we then had our second son, and we said again, right, we're not going through that again. It was doable, but it was exhausting. I'm not doing it again. So we said, next time we'll make sure everything's in place. There's nothing else going on. We found out we were expecting a baby on a Saturday in March 2020. And I'm sure you can see where this is going. So we found out on the Saturday. On the Monday, Boris announced lockdown. and on Thursday we had to close our business and our only source of income. So that wasn't the smooth ride I was hoping for either. And in fact, I probably worked harder during that period than I ever had before.
Wow. Okay. But you are between you, and I'm just interesting. So, I mean, I get the sense Matt's very much the operational side, the practical side of the business. You take care of most of the rest of the side of business. I'm sure you've got there's an element of
Yeah, we've always said Matt is manufacturing. So anything to do with the actual making of a component, or the carbon fiber, the technical side of it, that's Matt through and through. The business side of it, pretty much anything outside of manufacturing is me.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. So that's still a pretty wide span of responsibilities. And so how do you, if you have to make big decisions like maybe premises or investing in new machinery or anything like that, is that done over the dinner table at home? Do you have full meetings at work? How does the decision making process work?
We try to keep it in work, but again, it's not that simple. I have been told off before because we went on holiday, and by the side of the pool, I turned around to Matt and started telling him that I had a great idea for how we could elevate our health and safety provisions. And he walked off very quickly to the bar and ignored me. So that it does find its way into our home life. We do talk about wages over the dinner table occasionally. We try not to. But we've got quite a good dynamic. We're yin and yang. We've always said that. So Matt's very passionate. He's very driven by his love of the industry.
Yeah.
And I'm very data driven. I'm very practical. I'm cautious. So actually, when we bring those ideas together, we normally find a middle ground that's actually doable. And I think that's actually what's sustained our growth over the years.
Excellent. Okay, well, it's obviously worked because you wouldn't have been going 16 years in a literally a high performance business area like you have without and being so successful. So, just talk to us a little bit about the future in terms of where the business might go in the next two to 3 years. How you see that evolving?
Okay. So yeah, as I touched on briefly before, in the last few years, we've diversified a lot. So although we are still motorsport and Formula One centric, we've also got another branch to the company, which is very much bespoke and looking for those unique projects of how we can elevate them through the application of carbon fiber and innovation. We really want to focus on innovation moving forwards as well, but not just innovation in terms of new projects, but we want to be bringing in a sustainable and environmentally friendly element to it all as well. We're starting to play with some more environmentally friendly materials and see how we can apply them. So using bioresins, all sorts of different applications. So we're looking for a more sort of sustainable, environmentally friendly future. We're also looking to grow a bit at the moment. We're very fortunate so that we've just taken on a new project, which is a 5-year-long project. And again, that's really exciting for our company. We normally, in this industry, you work on maybe an 8-week, 12-week turnaround for a lot of the projects. You do have the bespoke ones that last longer, but this particular project is a 5-year running, which is quite exciting. So we're able to grow with that.
Excellent. And broadly speaking, I mean, you will be looking to, you still see skilled labour and apprentices being really important part of the process. I guess I'm asking, is robotics and AI going to change the business in the way that what you do is put together in the short, as far as anybody can look ahead? It's still going to be a sort of a skilled labour element to the business?
No, that you can't really replace what we're doing with technology in that, like I say, especially with the motorsport side of things. When you're making a component, you're making maybe 6, 8, 10 off. You can't create machinery that's going to be able to follow those pathways and do that for that low volume. It's not like the automotive side of it where you can have a robot do the same thing over and over again and it be cost effective. So I don't see that side of things being replaced. I do see AI actually elevating the industry by sharing a lot of those techniques, those technologies, seeing how it can be improved. It's really exciting having a play sometimes and saying, I want to change this a little bit, or I want to include carbon fiber. How can I do it? And seeing what it comes back with. So I think it might elevate the industry, but I don't think it will replace anything. But I'm going to not say too much, just in case I have to eat my words on that one.
Okay, yeah, well, that's a risk for anybody at the moment. Well, look, in terms of it's a fantastic story. Thank you very much for sharing it with us, and we wish you every success. I'm sure you're going to be hugely successful going forward. Just tell us a little bit in terms of how, because even just as we've been talking, I've thought of a couple of people that I know that might benefit from the sort of innovative carbon fibre. So if people want to learn more, whether it's from a potential employment basis or potential doing business with you, what's the best way of finding out more about HS Composites and website, LinkedIn? So what's the best way?
Obviously, first port of call, have a quick glance over our website, see if you like what we're doing. But ultimately, we are very personal people.
Yeah.
Pick up the phone or send me an email, and come and meet us, have a look around, see what we do, have a chat, see how you might fit in, whether that's as a potential employee or customer, or just someone that's really enthusiastic about the use of carbon fibre. Who knows?
No, well, thank you very much for that, and I'd invite anybody listening or watching this to share on their socials, LinkedIn, etc., so that HS Composites gets as widely known as possible. And so we've gone from sort of a home oven components through to cutting edge composites, and Sarah Jaycock is helping, I think, shape the future of British manufacturing, both with purpose, creativity, and care, particularly around the people side of business. So it's been a great story. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for telling us that. I think I'm sure lots of people will find that very interesting. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.